This video is powered by the pros at Pascal Air Plumbing and Electric. Arkansas owned, Arkansas operated. GoPascal.com.
Clay, I don't even know this. Do you have an MLB team? Do you got one that you cheer for if you're picking one?
You know, I've never owned one, no. I haven't never had the money to buy an MLB team.
Well, there's not many people out there that have it.
Isn't that what you asked? Do you have one?
Yeah, do you have? You don't have one?
I don't own one. No.
Okay. I thought
You got one you root for?
What about the Hogs Illustrated
Not really.
money? Did that not?
I mean, I think I follow whoever has a Razorback, and that would be, you know, several teams right now. You know, I mean, it could be different by the time the year's over. The way the guys move around. Benintendi, did he end up with 3 teams before it was all over last year?
Royals, Yankees, and
Toronto.
Maybe. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. Anyway, but it's like for instance, last summer, my wife and I planned a trip to Pennsylvania through Cincinnati so we could watch the Mets and the Reds, and that was James McCann. And you know, we happened to be there when they put him in as a pinch hitter for, you know, a big hit, you know, won a game.
How about
that? Was kind of cool. Yeah. And then I think maybe 2 summers before, Sarah and I went for her birthday, went up and saw James's team. He was playing with the Tigers at that time, and saw them play the Royals in Kansas City. So, you know, that's about the extent of my baseball. You know, I casually watch the Cardinals, but I'm not, like Dudley's a Cardinal fan. That's not me.
Big Cards guy.
Yeah, and you know, there was a time when I followed the Braves, because you could watch it you know, late at night. They were playing in the NL West, and you know, that was back in the days of Dale Murphy and Bob Horner and those guys. And
Lynn Hubbard.
Yeah, and so my family, my ladies, you know, they go to bed about 9 o'clock, you know, on a school night, and you know, the Braves might be playing the Giants on the West Coast, and so it came on the Superstation at, you know, to 9:30 or 10, so I could watch that. So I got to where I was watching the Braves a little bit, but I would really be a stretch to say I was a Braves fan.
Dale Murphy was down in Hot Springs a couple months ago. They had a symposium or something he spoke at, but he was my favorite player as a kid.
Pretty neat guy.
I think he hit more home runs in the 90s than anybody.
Wow. They're going to be any big dogs this weekend in Hot Springs? We heard from Richard that Pittman and...
I heard you were going to be there.
Listen, as much as I like to think of myself as a big dog at times, I'm nowhere near approaching that category. But, I mean, this is you'd have to help me on this, Tommy. This is what, the 4th biggest horse race in the United States behind the Derby, the Stakes, and what's the...
Well, I'm no expert in that field. We can ask Lang tomorrow, but it you know, it's up there. I mean, obviously there's a lot of implications this weekend, but you're right. There will be some who's who. I mean, generally Jerry Jones and his entourage arrives. I think Sam Pittman, it's kind of been a tradition, Clay, of Arkansas coaches. Petrino kind of started it. Bielema extended it. I mean, there's been a tradition of Arkansas coaching staffs going to the Derby.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that it went a lot further back than that. I'm pretty sure Houston Nutt would go to, you know, some of those races or whatever, and you know, it was just a way of you know, having an Arkansas Razorback presence, you know, at a place where a lot of boosters are at. You know, that's where a lot of the money people in Arkansas go. That's not my place. I mean, you know, when you talk about the Derby, either the Kentucky Derby, any of those, I'm interested in them. But gosh, it's over in 2.5 minutes. You know, there's just not enough there for me, and I don't like to gamble. So that's I'm not against gambling. I just don't gamble. I will gamble if I would play like Tommy or Ty in golf, because that wouldn't be gambling.
Yeah, that's not gambling.
That's a sure bet.
Easy win. You know. We're playing at Hot Springs Country Club at 9 a.m. on Sunday. I'm excited to see that course.
Which course are you playing? There's 2.
I think it's Arlington.
The Arlington side is the place.
Is it easier?
I played. It's not easier. No, it's harder.
Great.
That's where they played the PGA Tour Hot Springs Open back in the 60s. It was a lot of fun. My uncle, I think he finished in the top 5. Uncle Bill. I remember going there as like a 7 or an 8-year-old. My dad put me on the 18th green where the players walked out, and you know, and I just stick out my hand, and at the end of the day I had like 30 golf balls. Well, so that was cool. Yeah,
it's one of the treasures in our state. Speaking of coach, they'll have practice and an early scrimmage on Saturday before they jet down to Oakland, and they're moving through this. About a week to go, a little over a week to go, Clay, before they hit the final practice on the 15th. What have you seen and heard so far? I know you hadn't had the chance to get over as much as normal as they've kind of gotten back after spring break this week.
I plan to watch an entire practice next week, probably. And I will say this from talking to people, and I did some stuff for Hogs Plus last night on their live broadcast. Talked about the team and did some research and talked to a few people that have been to every practice and the inside guys. What's really important is that the receivers and the defensive linemen and all those guys that came in the portal, they're all hits. They're all going to play. I'm not saying they're starters. Just depends on how they deploy them. But Jeff Coate, Teslaw, Armstrong. Teslaw is the one that kind of fascinates, and I think he might be a little better than they expected. He's the transfer from Hillsdale College in Michigan. Maybe none of these guys are what I would say blazers, these wide receiver, but they're all possession guys. The ball never touches the ground. Isaiah Satina is catching everything. The ball's not touching the ground. That's how you get on the field. I got into reading Jimmy Johnson's book, Swagger, and he really emphasized the importance of a backup quarterback. And I think they're really pleased, not necessarily surprised, but with the way the accuracy and the velocity and just the way the ball spins with Jacolby Criswell. And I think that's really important, not just for this year, but going forward. He played behind two great quarterbacks at North Carolina, so the idea that May and Howell were ahead of him, probably the best two quarterbacks ever played at North Carolina. That was just bad luck for him. And I don't think you can say that's a strike against him that he wasn't able to beat those two guys out while he was at North Carolina. And I think that he's going to help this team this year, and that maybe is as big a thing to come out of the first 6 days of practice as anything.
Because we saw this team in games where KJ wasn't fully healthy or couldn't go, i.e. Mississippi State. The offense was nowhere near.
LSU.
Yeah, nowhere near the same. So the hope
they played so good against LSU and really had them in a stranglehold and just didn't have a quarterback that could execute 2 or 3 plays is all they needed to win that game.
Yeah, and didn't help that All-American Harold Perkins was coming off the edge and was, what, he got 4 or 5 sacks in that game?
But I think they still could have won the game despite that if they just could have made some plays on offense. It just, understanding things, being able to throw with accuracy on the goal line, because they had goal line plays that they didn't execute.
Or if the temperature had ever gotten above 8, that might help too. It was a cold day.
Yeah, that was a frustrating game. Again, we're talking with Clay Henry, senior fellow and contributor here on ESPN Arkansas. Clay joins us every Thursday at 8 o'clock. Clay, you mentioned the backup quarterback. I know that's always the most popular position on the team. You're pretty solidified at running back, but we don't necessarily talk enough about defense, and the performance that the defense gave that LSU was probably one of the best in the last couple years or so. I mean, they were outstanding. Jane Daniels and company had just torched Alabama the week before, and then they couldn't do anything against Arkansas. For Coach Woodson coming in, what can he take away from that performance from a bunch of his guys last year, and how what have you noticed and what have you heard more heard, like you alluded to, about what the defense is looking like in the offseason?
I think the main thing you'd have to say is that they believe that their 2 transfers in the defensive line, Jeff Coate and Moore. I think those guys are going to be difference makers. And Jeff Coate is 6'4", 280, and he is just a physical freak. And reminds me of Jonathan Marshall. Jonathan was a little bigger. He was more of a 300-pounder, but hey, Jeff Coate, he might be a 300-pounder. Trejon, Jeff Coate. Don't forget that name.
He's a Missouri transfer, and Morgan's the Pitt transfer, right?
That's correct.
Okay.
And and I think he's more of an inside guy, and then I think the Pitt guy is more of an edge rusher, and I think you can expect a lot of the same type action from him as Jordan Dominic. Yeah, all the portal guys have, are hits, and I think that's the main takeaway so far. And you just never know. I mean, you get them, and there could be, character issues. There could be, hey, they're not. They could be injured. You don't know. In the NFL, when you trade, you get a physical. You do not get that in the portal, man. You just take them on a handshake. They come in, and you're not allowed to to put them through the medical works. I think linebacker is, people are used to the names, Grant Morgan and Bumper Poole, and Grant was gone last year and Bumper's gone this year. I think when you see Pooh and Jordan Crook and Manny Powell has really looked good. Didn't get to see him last year. Played it a little bit at Fayetteville before he tore up his knee. Mm-hmm. He is a downhill bruiser, and all these guys can run. I think you're going to see a bigger, faster linebacker group, and I know Travis Williams is happy. He's the two freshmen, and I don't have their names right in front of them. They're both more able physically to get on the field as true freshmen. And that means, that's depth, but it also really highlights your special teams. And that's where, linebackers, traditionally your backup linebackers make the biggest impact the fastest you see them as players. So I think that there's a lot of hope for this defense. And, we talk a lot about play calling and offensive firepower, and, that seems to get us up and down more than anything. But over the last few years, if they were a little bit better on defense, this team scored enough points. They had enough offense, and I think they're going to have plenty of offense with KJ. And I think that the mesh with Dan Enos is real. I think it's and I'm not saying Dan Enos is better at this or that than Kendall Briles, but I don't think you're going to see an offensive slippage. I think you'll see improvement. And I think that the quarterback room, they're taking a liking to Dan, and I think the complete offensive staff, they understand that there's somebody in control. There's accountability, from the offensive coordinator and the quarterback coach throughout that room, and it's just a little different than it was with Kendall Briles. It always is, and I think that he's a taskmaster, but he's also a guy that players like. That's a good combination.
I thought it was interesting. Richard was telling us in hour one the 5-star defensive players that have been on campus. Arkansas has only ever had one 5-star out-of-state defensive guy that's ever signed. Any idea who that was? You've talked about him before.
Well, I mean, it's
only one in the history of Arkansas.
Signed Drew Sanders, but he was a 5-star.
Yes, he came over, but only one that they didn't get out of the portal.
Don't ever forget that he's a 5-star because he was really, really good.
And the ability to get guys out of the portal has changed things.
Yeah, I don't know what, there was ratings back then, but Billy Ray Smith was a 5-star. And, out of Plano. And that's a legacy. His dad, Billy Ray Sr., played at Arkansas. So he wasn't probably going to go anyplace else. They signed a lot of good defensive players. I don't know if Jermaine Brooks was a 5-star. He was definitely highly regarded out of Southern California.
Yeah. In the recruiting rankings last 20 or so years, never had a player.
I don't keep up with that, so I'm the wrong guy to ask.
No,
Tell
you're
us
good.
Who it is.
But I was just going to say,
Batman Carroll.
Yeah, it's what Tommy just said,
Okay.
Batman Carroll. But the fact that you're getting these guys on campus that haven't necessarily been, you got to land them, you got to sign them, but you've got an offensive
That's a big
guy.
step.
Yeah, you've got
an
offensive guys outside the state.
But very few ever signed that don't visit, so it's getting them on campus is the first key.
It's a big stinking deal, and I just think again you increase the talent level on defense. Clay, like you were talking about, there's a handful of games the last couple of years that you had a better defensive performance. You win that game, and you look at that running back room. That's an SEC depth running back room. Quarterback, wide receiver, offensive line. Maybe you have some more question marks, but defensive wise, there's not necessarily a position group. You're like, man, that is loaded with SEC talent, front and back.
Yeah, I think you see improvement. You see improvement so far through these 6 practices at tight end. I think there'll probably be more more physical just by, the new coaches. That's definitely what he is. He pushes for that. I think that they like the guys they got in the transfer portal in the offensive line. There won't be any fall off at center from Stromberg to Limmer. Those are comparable players. It's so far so good. And I think Cam Ball banged up his ankle a little bit. You want to watch how that is, and those things can linger. But so far so good on the comeback from Tari and Carter. I mean, that was a massive loss last year, guys. I mean, and I knew it when he went down. I knew it was a serious knee injury. I knew he was going to have reconstructive surgery and was not going to play. And there was, and I kept trying to tell people, that, it's going to be a miraculous comeback. He's going to help. He wasn't going to play. I mean, it was no different than the injury that, I'm going blank, our Missouri transfer in basketball, Trevin Brazil. I mean, it was a serious injury that you're going to miss a whole year. And that's what happened with Carter. And they're just bringing him along slowly, but everything that he's done suggests that he will be your bell cow in that defensive line.
BetOnline remains your number one source for all your college basketball betting this season. Get analysis of every play, prop, and point at BetOnline. You'll find the latest odds, bracket contests, team matchups, and game trends at BetOnline. Updated odds for everything from live games right through the Final Four and the championship game. BetOnline is where your college basketball headquarters are this season. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to sign up and receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Be sure to use our promo code BELIEVE to receive your bonus. That's BLEAV. BetOnline.ag, where the game starts.